In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to transfer a website from one host to another host with the same domain. So we're transferring the entire site and the domain, and there's going to be zero downtime. I'm going to show you how to do that, and it's pretty tricky, but I'm going to show you step by step how it's done, and we're getting started right now. Hey, what is going on? My name is Bjorn. If you're into WordPress and learning tips and tricks and getting better at it, make sure you click subscribe, then the bell notification icon so you don't miss anything, and check out our Facebook group linked to in the description down below where we help each other with WordPress. And with that out of the way, let's head into the screen capture. I'll see you there. So the first thing we want to do is get all the site files in the database. We're going to do it really easily using the all-in-one migration plugin. If we head over to plugins and then add new, and then search for all-in-one migration, we will find the plugin we want in the top left up here. You can use a different one if you want to. I'm just going to use this. It's very easy to use. I'm going to click on Install Now to install it. One caveat is the free version allows up to 512 megabytes for the file size. Any bigger than that, you got to get the pro version. So I'm going to click on Activate to activate it. And pretty much all the plugins that do migrations have those kind of limits. Now that we've installed it, there's a new menu item called All-in-One WP Migration. Click on Export. Here in this first entry, we can replace information in the database if we want to. One of the great things you can do with this plugin is change the domain names. If you're migrating from one domain name to another, you can find the old one, replace it with the new one. In this case, I am not migrating domain names. I'm keeping the same domains. I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to click on Advanced Options. I'm going to choose not to export spam comments. You can also remove post revisions, which I will do. And all the rest I want to keep. Then I click on Export To, and I choose File. You can choose the other ones if you want, but I'm going to choose File. And that will create a file that we can then download to our hard drive. I'm going to fast forward this because this is quite a large site, and it's going to take a while to create this file and download it, so I'm just going to fast forward. When the download's complete, we click on this pulsating button to download it, and this is 1 gigabyte. And like I said earlier, the free version only goes up to 512 megabytes. So you're going to have the paid version if you have file sizes as big as this. If you're using the all-in-one migration plugin, there is a way to upload giant file sizes with SSH without a plugin. And I'm going to do that in a different tutorial. But for this one, I'm using the paid version of the all-in-one plugin. And I'm going to fast forward this again while on the bottom left here, my file downloads, and I'll come back when it's all downloaded. Now that our file is downloaded, we can just leave it on the hard drive. We're going to import that into a fresh WordPress install on our SiteGround server. And we're going to do some trickery now in our hosts file. Every computer has a hosts file. It's basically instructions on how browsers should access certain things on the internet. And so by default, when somebody goes to this domain name, because of the way my DNS is set up in GoDaddy, when someone tries to access this, the browser goes out, tries to access it, it sends the traffic to WP Engine where the site files are, and it shows the site and the site files. Now on your local computer, there's something called a hosts file. In there, you can specify a different IP address to resolve when someone on your computer goes to this domain. And the IP we're going to use is our SiteGround hosting IP. So when I change this host file, which I'm going to do in just a second, I'm going to show you how to do it. We go to this domain, we will no longer be going to WP Engine. We will be going to SiteGround. And this only affects your computer. So this isn't affecting outside traffic, just your computer. And this allows you to transfer a domain and a website with zero downtime, because you can recreate the entire site and have it perfect, have it the exact same as here, or update it to your new version if that's what you want to do. You can use this strategy for staging sites too. So you can have your new version of your site or a perfect replica of your existing one. And then when you're ready, you can change the name servers in your DNS in the domain registrar, and it will just switch whenever it switches. Doesn't matter when, because your site's already up and it's perfect. It'll just switch it to go to the new host. And that's how you have zero downtime. So let's change the host file on my Mac for this domain trickery. I've created this blog post. It's very slim right now. There's going to be more by the time you get here. And it also have instructions for Windows as well. Accessing the host file will be different, but the information you put into the host file will be the same, I believe, for Mac, Windows, and Linux. And that will all be on this blog post linked to in the description down below. But to open our host file, first we open terminal. So I'm going to press Command and then spacebar, type in terminal, hit enter, and we have what's called terminal on a Mac right here. And this is where we now access our host file. I'm going to shrink this a bit, and I'm going to copy this command and paste it in here and hit enter. It's going to ask for your administrator password, enter that, and now we have our host file right here. So these are all the IP redirections inside of my host file. I have some for Flywheel as well. I use Flywheel to build sites locally, and this is how it looks. It says if you go to this IP, resolve this domain, local site. So this is all required by Flywheel. We're going to create our own. We're going to create a new entry. We're going to go to our cPanel, copy the IP address. We're going to paste it in here, space. I'm going to type in my domain name, learninglab.com, enter, paste in my IP address, and then have www.wplearninglab.com. Then I hit Control X, and then yes to save, then enter. Then we exit the host file, and then we have to clean our cache, which is the second command right here, our host file cache, and stop it from running. So now we have that going. And now you may have to do this in a different browser, but if you clear your cache and cookies, you should be able to access your site now at the different IP. So right now I have not yet added WP Learning Lab as an add-on domain in SiteGround. So if I go to the domain name now, if our host file is updated, I might have to try in Firefox. But if I go here now, it's going to do some strange things. So let's give it a go. So it's saying no SSL, and that's fine. Go to advanced, proceed, and now it brings up this website, the website of Max C. Perkins Jr., MBA. This is not my website, but I have a feeling that Max has a site on the same shared server that I'm running in SiteGround. Now, why his appears when I do this, I do not know. But you might experience something similar if you don't do an add-on, or if you don't add your domain name as an add-on first. So if we go back into our SiteGround hosting, go to add-on domains, enter your domain name, wplearninglab.com is mine. I take the .com out of the folder name, generate a password, save it, click on use password, click on add domain. And now I am going to actually add a file to that. So let's just open this in the file manager. And I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it index.html. I'm going to create it, click on it, edit, and I'm going to say, this is the future home of WP Learning Lab, and click on save. Now, when I go to WP Learning Lab, again, I may have to use a different browser, clear cache and cookies first. But now when I go here, it should resolve that HTML file. And here it is. This is the future home of WP Learning Lab. I added a www when I wasn't adding it. It was trying to load HTTPS, and that was giving a SiteGround error. So all kinds of weird things happen when you try these migrations without downtime. But if we go to www, we see that we are resolving the file on SiteGround. So now we can go ahead and install WordPress in here, and then import our all-in-one WP file, all-in-one migration file, into that site and have our site online. And again, it might be kind of scary to see your domain name resolving as an error or just as this, but feel reassured this is only happening on your browser because you changed the host file on your computer, not on everybody else's in the world. This is only happening on your computer. So if I head back into cPanel home, I'm going to search for, not search, I found it. Go to WordPress installer, click on install now, use HTTPS, put it into this domain, take off the HTTPS, we'll add that later. In the directories relative to your domain and should not exist, let's just leave that blank. So we don't have to really enter anything in here. Don't enable multi-site if your site isn't a multi-site. You can enter a new username and password. You only have to use this for one login, because once you import your site, you're going to have your old logins from your old site. So you don't really need to really change a lot here. I'm just going to copy the one they gave me, change this to something I'll remember. Change the email address to that. Why not? Don't have to worry about anything else. What are the advanced options? We should be able to keep these as is, and I click on install. Password strength must be greater than 50, but you gave me the password. They're the ones that said use this password. Strength is 0. Okay, let's try that. Now click on install. It says 3 to 4 minutes, but usually it's just a few minutes, a few seconds, I mean. That goes pretty quick. I actually went up to 101% installed if you saw that. That's pretty amazing. So now if we go here and we cross our fingers, we should still be resolving our secret IP. We have, if we go to our site here, using my domain name, again, this is kind of mind-blowing. My browser is showing this, but other people's browsers will show your live site. Mine's showing this page. Let's go to the dashboard. I'm going to upload my pro version of all-in-one WP migration, and then we're going to upload this giant file. I'm going to head over to plugins and then add new, and then upload plugin. And I'll drag and drop my all-in-one WP migration plugin, click on install now, and then click on activate plugin. Now I have a new menu item, just like before, all-in-one WP migration. Instead of export, this time I'm going to click on import. Then you can choose to import from a location. I'm just going to drag and drop the file from my hard drive here. And this will take some time to upload. So I'm just going to pause it or mute it and fast forward, and then resume once it's uploaded. So at some point, once the upload has been uploaded and checked, you'll get this message saying everything on your site is going to be overwritten, including the database, theme, plugins, everything. So that means any changes you made to the site, for whatever reason, are going to be gone when you click proceed. So weigh that carefully before you click. And now I'm just going to click this, and we're going to have our site hopefully replicated. Going to fast forward again while this does its work. And then hopefully you'll get this message saying your data has been successfully imported or imported successfully, whatever way you want to read that. Now it says we have to save our permalinks. You don't have to review the plugin, but you do have to save the permalinks. And why save the permalinks? Well, I'm going to refresh, or I'm just going to head over to settings and then permalinks. I want to see if the blog name changes up here to our old one. Have to log in again. This looks promising. But I digress. The reason, hang on, let's solve this in a second. The reason we have to save the permalinks is because pages that aren't the home page sometimes return 404 errors when they're migrated to a new domain or a new hosting account. So we have to save our permalinks. That rebuilds the htaccess file, and then we can use our site as normal. So now let's see why we can't log in here. Pretty sure cookies are enabled. See what this link does. This takes us to the codex for that. Cookies are enabled. Let's make sure we have the right login, and it's still behaving badly. Let's go to the home page. So our home page is here. This is legitimately what our home page looks like on the other domain. So that's pretty awesome. That worked out. Go to the About page, which is a little story about me. Check that out if you haven't yet. It's a pretty short read. The blog, let's see if that's there. Blog is there. If I go to a blog post, in this case, I don't have to save the permalinks again because all these pages are working fine. But I'm going to save them anyway, just for good measure. I've noticed also that I'm actually logged in here. So I'm going to go to dashboard and then log in. And when you log in again, you're going to see a lot of error messages. Possibly, depending on what kind of plugins you're running, because they're going to detect a slightly different domain name or a duplicate domain name, and they're going to want to re-verify the licensing to make sure you're not trying to steal their plugin. So you have to clear that up as you go. But for permalinks, if you had an error with the 404 pages, let's fix that. Go to settings and then permalinks, and then choose whatever structure you're using. You should be using post name. Don't just switch that willy-nilly. If you have a site that exists on a different URL structure, don't just pick post name because that's the best one. If you have a site that exists and it's indexed and it's getting traffic, you have to redirect all your old URLs to the new ones. If you have an issue like that, leave a comment in the comments down below, and I'll help you figure that out. But post name is the one you should be using. To reset the permalinks, all you do is come in here, click on Save Changes. Don't change anything, just save changes. The plugin recommends doing it twice. I've never had to do it twice, but you can do it twice for good measure. Save it again, and now we have our permalinks. And we already checked the site. Everything appears to be working fine. Now we can go ahead and change the actual DNS because we're still running on the secret IP address in our SiteGround hosting. First, we'll want to actually have an HTTPS on here because the original site did have an SSL certificate, so we're going to do that in just a second. But before I do that, I want to mention something very important, and that is email. Emails can be set up on servers in various ways. For me, I've found the best way is to use a third-party email service. I use G Suite myself, but you can use Rackspace, you can use Office 360. There's a whole bunch of them out there. But for me, the best thing to do is use one of those, and then for your domain name DNS, change the MX records. So inside of GoDaddy or Namecheap or domain.com or wherever you get your domain names, you can set DNS records, and MX records are for mail exchange records. So that's where emails go. So you can send your email traffic right from your domain registrar to the appropriate third-party software like G Suite. The other way people do email is on their server, and that's free. G Suite, Office 360, and Rackspace all cost money. If you have email on your server and you are collecting email using something like, I forgot what they're called, Squirrel was maybe one of them, Cube was maybe another. There's a bunch of different software in cPanel for doing your email. Then you can IMAP those or POP3 those to your local computer or to your phone. And that's great. I did that for a long time. But I found whenever I switched hosting and domain names, there's always a huge problem because when you switch name servers, you then switch where your email is going. So all your old email is going to be broken until you've migrated all that stuff as well. So when I do the MX record change in the DNS, I never have to touch that again. I can change my hosting once a week, but I never have to touch my email. I never have to worry about that because the MX records are changed with the domain registrar. You can also change your MX records on your host. It gets complicated. There's so many ways to do email, you can pull your hair out. But you can have your MX records on your hosting account as well if you use third-party tools. But again, you have to update that whenever you switch hosting. And hopefully you never do switch hosting. Like switching hosting is not something you want to do all the time. I'm just switching to SiteGround because it's so much faster and in my opinion, so much better and more affordable than other solutions out there. And I have a whole blog post on it in the description down below. There's a link, check that out. But I like SiteGround, so I'm switching. That's my 2 cents about email. So if you have your email on your server or even set up through MX records on your server, make sure you have that transitioned as well before you change the DNS records in your domain registrar. So I'm going to deal with these errors once the site is live and the name servers have been switched in the domain registrar. For now, let's see if we can get an SSL certificate. So back in SiteGround, let's go to Home. Let's log in again, go to My Accounts, go to cPanel. So you want to search for Let's Encrypt right here. These guys provide free SSLs to websites. So now all we have to do is pick a domain name. So I'm going to pick the one we just transferred, wplearnlab.com, and I'm going to choose a Let's Encrypt SSL. Let's Encrypt Wildcard SSL is if you have subdomains on a website. So if you have, for example, maybe we'd have clients.wplearnlab.com, that would require Wildcard SSL to have that subdomain secured with HTTPS as well. And even for multi-sites, you need a wildcard. But I don't have either of those for this site, so I'm just going to use the regular Let's Encrypt, then click on Install. Let's Encrypt certificate added successfully to the installation queue. And now that is going to happen relatively quickly. This usually takes a few minutes. But I'm going to pause this video and I'll come back once the certificate is here, and then we'll carry on from there. This Let's Encrypt SSL is taking a little longer than I thought it would. So we're going to talk about it a little bit, and I'm going to show you what to do to finish off this transfer process. So Let's Encrypt is a free open source SSL, operative word being free. All of the hosting providers that you now see with free SSLs, they're all Let's Encrypt SSLs. And these SSLs require renewal every 3 months. Some hosts will actually deactivate your SSL after 3 months, and you have to manually renew it every time. SiteGround does it automatically. So every 3 months, you don't have to do anything. So it just keeps on renewing automatically all the time. So let's go check out our domain registrar, in this case, GoDaddy. In my domain list, I've found my domain. I'm going to click on these 3 dots, click on Manage DNS. And here it's going to list all the various DNS things we have going on. Mentioned earlier the MX records. This is where I set them right here. And these are all to G Suite. So since the MX records are with the domain registrar, I never have to worry about that when I move to a different hosting. And my name servers are currently set to default. You might be wondering why, since I have my website hosted somewhere already. It's because WP Engine does not use name servers. So for WP Engine, they actually make you create a CNAME going to the WP Engine domain, and then that then shows your site on their servers without using name servers. SiteGround and all other cPanel hosts use name servers. So if we head back to cPanel Home, we're going to see the name servers we need, and those are these guys right here. So let's copy that one. They're usually identical except for one number in most cases, NS1, NS2. That's how most of them are, but sometimes they're different. Either way, it's usually 2, and you just copy them into here. Go to name servers, click on change, choose custom, paste one in, get the other one, copy it, paste it in there, and then click on save. And then you update your name servers. I'm not going to click on save right now because we did a lightweight check of the website earlier. But since this is my live legitimate website, not just a demo site, I want to actually do a much more thorough check to make sure everything's working before I switch over my name servers. But if you set it up the way we have here with 2 different hosting accounts, you can very easily just switch these back. So if I save this and things went wrong and I wanted to revert back, I just have to go back to the default name servers for GoDaddy. Now put those back in. My CNAME would still be here. It would still be going to WP Engine. If you're using a different host that has name servers as well, just switch name servers back to the other host, and then your other site would be loaded, the one that still works. So you can always revert back until you delete the other site, then there's no reverting back. After that, you're done. And that is literally the last step to getting your site online, is these name servers. So we're going to check if Let's Encrypt is finished. If not, we're going to wrap it up. I said all there is to say about it. You don't have to do anything. Once Let's Encrypt is installed, it just adds an SSL, and your site will resolve with HTTPS. There's no other settings you have to do. Nothing. You might want to use the Real Simple SSL plugin to get the green padlock. The green padlock that you see up here is much, much easier with that plugin. I have a tutorial for that linked to in the card above and the description down below. And one last thing, once you have your site migrated, you can turn off your settings inside of the host file you did, where we changed our domain name to point to this IP address. You can then delete that entry in the host file, save the host file, and then your browser will resolve your domain name as usual, as it should, which will be on the new host. And that's how we migrate to a new host with 0 downtime using the all-in-one WP migration plugin. So that's how it works. I hope this video helps you. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you hit subscribe and the bell notification icon so you don't miss anything, and check out the Facebook group linked to in the comments down below. And next up is clicking one of these videos that popped up on the right hand side so you get even better at WordPress. And until next time, keep crushing it, and I will see you in the next video.